Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Talks. Leadership Talks is a podcast for emerging leaders who are on a path of transformation and are looking for ideas from leaders who have gone through this journey. On the 8th of March, we celebrated International Women's Day. So, this month is dedicated to the women leaders from different industries and walks of life to share their stories and inspire you to stand tall, stand strong, break glass ceilings, and climb glass cliffs. I'm your host, Kirandeep Sandhu, and I'm here hosting this episode along with Ram Ramakrishnan, named as Lead Change with Passion. Over to you, Ram.
Thank you, Kiran. In today's episode, we have privilege of having our guest, Prafulla Vedula Agarwal, is Executive Director with CBRE Global Workplace Solution, has over 25 plus years of professional experience in hospitality and corporate real estate, which spans across profitability management, client management, solution development, among others. She is also recently conferred honorary doctorate for business management and transformation from European International University. Congratulations, Prafulla, for that achievement. Prafulla is a certified Vested deal architect for architecting win-win contractual relationship, the first for the real estate industry in Asia Pacific. Currently, Prafulla is pursuing digital transformation solution as part of personal development. Her mantra for success: lead change with passion. What a wonderful achievement you have. It's our honor and pleasure to have you as part of this Leadership Card, Leadership Talk episode. Welcome.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you so much for joining us, to Prafulla, on especially this month as we are celebrating International Women's Day. So it's an honor to have you as part of this episode of Leading with Change with Passion, as that's what your mantra. You have actually, Prafulla, been quite inspiring being in this male dominated industries, whether you chose corporate real estate or AI. Were these actually deliberate? Were these like strategic moves that you chose, or were they actually accidental choices that happened?
Every choice is accidental, if I may say so, because you're not as wise as was what you are at my age 20 years ago when you came into the industry.
Right.
But on a more serious note, I wouldn't say it's completely accidental, but it's not something that has been like you got to be in this industry. It was some colleagues, ex-colleagues from the previous industries who were part of this space, and they came in saying, "Why don't you evaluate, this particular industry?" There was a lot of synergies with what I was doing, and which is how we said, "Okay, let's explore getting into it." What came in as a shocker when I came into the system was I was literally the only woman in the group of managers or the leadership that was at the country level, and especially in India. Plus, I was also a non-engineer. So it was a double whammy for me when I came on board. But it's been an interesting journey since then. So I would say it was a planned career move, not necessarily a planned industry move. So a bit of an accident, a bit of a plan. So that's how it worked.
So you've already talked about the two major obstacles that could have possibly coming, one being the only woman in that position, and then trying to figure it out whether this was really happening. So
Yeah.
I think what would be some of the other challenges that you faced in this industry as a woman?
So I think, Kiran, one of the things I've always coached my own self is don't get into the slots. Avoid being saying you are a woman in a male industry, or you're a male in a woman industry, or you have this qualification or you don't have that. I've always sort of degenderized, if that's the right word, but degenderized any role or any responsibility that was taken in them. And and touch wood, I've had the luxury and I had the privilege of working with very progressive organizations throughout my career. I don't think I've ever faced situations where an organization, there would be an organizational bias against a particular gender or a race or division. So I wouldn't say the challenges were there because I was a woman, but the challenges were there as part of the role that you've taken in. Because I definitely I enjoy clean slates because they're uncharted paths. And interestingly, in the last 25 years, most of the roles that I have been given by organizations were sort of created around the strengths that I bring to the table. So the challenge was more in finding those ways amongst those unkept jungles and trying to see what more can be achieved, what more can be done, what differently can be done, and how do we coach ourselves towards the change. I think for me, the challenge has always been how do I take my peers, my colleagues, my industry, and my clients on the new paths, on the changed courses that I wanted to take, because it's always a problem. Because there's nothing tangible in front of you. You're saying that there could be a potentially something great, so walk with me on the path. Not everybody would like to do it. So those were more challenges rather than gender-based challenges, if I'd be very honest with you, through most of the journey.
And that's a very interesting perspective. And as I missed out the first time, so you talked about being male, women in the male industry, then in engineering were just certain aspects of it. But you were very fortunate to be in an industry where it was pretty much degenderized. There was the gender issue wasn't really there, but it was more about the challenge issues, about bringing change and how do you inspire people to lead those changes. I really like that part about it. And I'm actually going to bring you back to your mantra, which you talk about in saying that lead change with passion. Would you like to elaborate a little bit about that? Because you do talk about it when you brought on the elements at how you wanted to inspire your peers, your colleagues, and your industry to be leading into those changes, into those untrodden paths.
Yes. So I was just referring back to our conversation earlier, where you'd mentioned about building the trust and having it to be able to virtually work with your colleagues in when you come on board. There's one thing that it's sort of there underlying in my thinking process, and which is why Vested also sort of helped clean up and bring more focus, is you choose to trust. You don't say trust is not conditional. So when you choose to trust, you will trust the person irrespective of whether they make mistakes or they do well. This is like when we choose our spouses. We don't call in for a management review the moment one of us lapses on one of our deliverables. You make up for each other, and you carry each other along through life, through all the problems that you face, and so should be professional relationships, because we're spending so much of time with each other. So for me, when I said lead a change with passion, it meant that first of all, I need to believe in the cause or believe in the objective or the path that I want to take in, and I should choose to trust my peers and colleagues and teams to share with them, saying, this is my dream. This is where I see I want us to go. And I shouldn't be afraid of failing in front of them, because a lot of times we don't put ideas because I see people are worried that if I fail, people will ridicule me. But I would be like an open book. I'm a product of my failures. I wouldn't say I'm a product of my successes, honestly, because every failure, I have bruised my nose, my knees, my head multiple times falling down. If this was physical, I would be completely bruised and scarred. But I enjoy doing that. And when my peers, my colleagues, everybody who's working, who have to come along, when they see that passion, they start trusting you. They choose to trust you. They don't make it conditional, and they love to come on that journey with you. So that's how I said a change can be led. It can't be like, oh, you go and change yourself while I'm sitting on my chair and I'm not moving. It doesn't work that way. So you're leading from the front. I think that's what I mean when I say passion.
I loved it. In fact, I'm just going to round before I give it to you. I'm going to bring in how you brought in about the partners your own spouses and how they have to, we are in that relationship, whether it's with our colleagues or in our what we are with our spouses. We cover up for those lapses and those gaps, and we work together as a team towards a
Yes.
common vision that we have set. And I love this whole thing about the bruises, because just yesterday I was listening to one of my coaches, and we're talking about what is the difference between a scar and a wound. A scar is just a reminder of the wound which is already healed. So it's just there to show us that it's there, but I've moved on from it. So, let's move forward. Where if it's a wound and it's hurting you, which means that you haven't really recovered from it.
Yep.
So I loved what you said, that you use those bruises, but they're not physical, and they helped you to grow as a leader, because you brought all those elements together to up your game and learn from those experiences. As you said, a product of your failures rather than the successes. Very well put, Prafulla.
Thank you.
Ram, would you like to, yeah, Ram, would you
Great.
like
I
to say
think
something?
very well you summarized whatever she has said so far are the golden nuggets. I think that is what I
Mhm.
know very well. The corporate real estate industry, either it is a male or female, it's a challenging industry kind of a thing, because I
Mm.
worked myself through that almost 3+ decade. I know
Mm.
about it. And also standing out among all those black umbrellas, the red umbrella is something is difficult, which I see. I had very closely worked with Prafulla as well, and seen her and how she has moved up in the, because of what she has done, because of that she has to be stand out on that. So in that direction, I wanted to ask one of the things which is dear to you, dear to me, kind of a thing, like the digital transformation, which we have been talking about in the corporate real estate and industry almost 2+ decades, kind of a thing. I saw it's a
Yeah.
slow adoption is what is happening in that industry. How do you change? Because we have learned a lot of hard lessons in the last 2 years. With that, do you see how that digital transformation is going to be? Can you lay out broadly how it is going to be and how it's going to benefit?
So Ram, as you said, it's been a very torturous, slow journey, and for somebody like me who loves fast pace, it's been I think testing my resolve and commitment in that domain. My dream is to have someday saying a building at least can be managed without a person standing there. That should be how digital transformation really leads, and then the physical interaction is only between people, so and enable that. So that's the vision. Now the adoption in the industry has been slow for various factors, and again, one of the things that I did learn over the years is a digital transformation is not a standalone activity that can be implemented. So it's one of the cogs in the overall wheels that is working, and the change has to happen across the board, in how we look after our corporate real estate, how it's being managed. So it's like when the entire change happens and transformation happens, technology becomes one of the enablers for that transformation. So it's not like technology is a standalone function by itself.
Right.
So
Right.
I think gathering that, and which is why I focus so much on transformation, to say, if I'm not willing to change the way I'm working, no technology is going to help me change the way I'm working. So I think that's the fundamental difference, and there's a whole load which comes in the ecosystem. So but the adoption has been there, and the pandemic is on. I think has in a way speed tracked that entire digital
Yeah.
space, which has
Absolutely.
been nice to have. It's like I remember way back 2005, six, energy and sustainability was a nice to have buzzword in discussions. But a decade later, it's become mandatory. Today, nobody talks of it as a choice anymore. I think technologies today become mandatory. And I'm very excited to see this space really evolve now and take on the various elements. We are seeing it right from your seat plannings and occupancy plans to managing your buildings. We're seeing sense technology finally coming into play in the buildings. Even within the corporate segments, they're understanding that data security does not mean that you're hard cased in the old ways of working. That data security can be expanded into bringing in and adopting a lot of technology. So I think there is a need and there is a recognition which has come through. What is interesting to watch the space is who would be the ones who will bring it to the doorstep finally. Would it be the occupiers themselves saying, let's build it for our own selves? Would it be the international property consultants like ours or CBRE or the other organizations in that frame? Would we be developing some stuff? Or there is a whole ecosystem on the ground which operates and supports it. Are they going to do it? So right now it's happening in bits and pockets across the board. And my guesstimate, I think another 3 to 4 years, this will become a very much a part and parcel of what we are doing, and it'll have a lot more formality, structure, and acceptance. So right now, it's a playing time. I mean, this is the best time for me. I think it's playing, it's exploring, it's finding things, it's putting on the table. Ultimately, it'll form into some contours.
So what
That's
you
correct.
said, walking onto the untrodden paths, and you're trying to make sure that you're leading that change as what you'd always talked about. Yeah.
No, that's what it
Absolutely.
is. It
Yeah.
has become like one of the things people have to have as part of their agenda, definitely as a digital transformation. See, I remember today, earlier we find in India when we go out and on cash, anything can get done and kind of a thing. Today, people, if I have a cash, people don't want. Everybody want an transformation and e-payment and kind of thing. That is the mindset which has come in, even at the
Yeah.
smallest vendor also.
Yes.
Given that organization definitely will look forward, they will keep that as an agenda. Another question related to this, I'm sure, I little bit cognizant has gone on vested, something they implemented. I studied little bit of that. So it is
Yes.
quite interesting. Vested Deal Architect Certificate, something which is global recognized, global kind of, I mean, as we are all working with global organization. And I
Yes.
wanted for our viewers, can you little bit elaborate what are all those some key benefits of this vested deal architect? What are it?
Okay. So vested as a concept belongs to Professor Kate Vitasek. She's the IP owner of that. And I had the privilege of working on a cognizant deal along with her, and then having my classrooms training by her. So it's sort of very dear to heart of what's in there. And one of my pieces, which I always tell Kate, is vested goes beyond workplace. As I said, I mean, we're all vested. As again, go back to the spousal or the family relation. We say blood is thicker than water. I mean, what does it mean? It means that we are vested. I remember, I may not like my brother. I fight with him every day, but I would stand up for him the moment somebody else says your brother was bad. So we are vested as human beings. We are vested in all our personal relationships. It's just that vested now allows us to be equally vested in the professional business relationships. And what it does is it's put in a kind of a structure to it on how do we go about doing it, and it has basic 5 principles, and in those principles is what it says is, I mean, if one, it starts with saying you choose to trust the partner, so you don't make it conditional, because when you make it conditional, you will invariably fail, because then there are ulterior motives to make you fail. When you choose to trust, you have no option to make me successful as much as you want to succeed. So it starts with having a joint and a shared vision, and that's something which I'm sort of writing a book now to say. This people say, what is the value versus the cost, or what is the value proposition or the benefit cost benefit analysis? I'm saying forget all of it. You have a dream. If you have a vision, what are you willing to pay for the vision to achieve that? Yeah. So if my vision is something, and if I'm going to say, if my vision is $100 vision and I want to pay pennies into it, then you are not doing justice to your own vision. So then let's not talk vision. Then let's talk about transactional activities. So the whole concept is saying, how do you put a value? How do you put a dollar, a price to your vision? And how do you take it forward? So what Vested does is saying, let us jointly have a common vision. So we are not pulling at each other. We are not on two sides of the tug of war. We're on the same side and pulling the whole organization. And when you do that, then every step you have planned as milestones is towards meeting that vision. And any behavior that is going to not allow you or will impact the journey is called out, because it's not a vested behavior then. Yeah. And so you have enough equity into that whole relationship between the two of you. You're honest to each other because you'll agree that you will fail. And what I like the best about it is it's never a hardwired contract, because contracts are built for today, looking at yesterday's problems. They're not preparing you for tomorrow, but your journey of vision is for tomorrow. And how do you crystal gaze and build a contract to take you tomorrow? You can't. I mean, it's like, as I said, I mean, when I marry, I mean, I have got short hair. I may be weighing 48 kilos. I mean, today I weigh 65 and my hair is grown. So am I in breach of my married contract? I'm not. Or maybe I am, but it's for the good that there is a breach of that contract, because it's working well for the family. So that is the approach. I mean, I just simplified it using that, because it helps connect with people all the time when you talk about a spousal thing. I can't turn around and say, oh, my spouse has put on 10 kilos. This is breach of contract. I'm exiting this deal. I don't. Yeah, we make it, we stick there. So that's effectively what Vested does. Vested talks about walking into tomorrow. And then I bring some skill sets, you bring some skill sets, then let us respect each other's skill sets and use them to the best of our ability. If I'm a subject matter specialist and you're going to hold my hand and write your story through my handwriting, it's not going to work. You will have to unhinge innovation. The whole idea is you unhinge the relationships where I can bring the best of my innovation. And in the process, I also get rewarded for it. So both parties get rewarded. So there is an equal pain and there's an equal gain. Everything you do, you're sharing it. And you're doing it for the future. I think that's vested in very simple layman terms as I look that whole piece up.
That's great. Even if you look at the leadership card, is also we are working. Each one has got their own strength and coming together and trying to bring the best out of that. That is what it is at the end of it.
Yes. You don't get very prescriptive. The idea is you allow each one to thrive and grow and in the process bring benefits to the relationship.
That's correct.
I love that. Yeah, no, I love the way Prafulla has explained this whole concept, and especially about the vision, because it's obviously about the tomorrow, and having these hard written rules which are based on the past experiences may not work out in the future, because you're trying to put everything on paper, but it's not going to work. So it has to be constantly evolving. It's like a relationship, and it can only be possible if you trust the partners and you all are working towards that common goal. And you know that we will fail, but we're going to make this work. So it's very well explained, Prafulla. That was a very good, easy example for,
Two more
I
points.
just want to add that one other thing is, I don't know, we have been known for each other. One other thing I really understood today, why we have got attracted. One thing, the way you think and way I think, it is the same. Kind of an organization, I have done that. Whenever there is a problem, always used to bring in your personal perspective, like you were saying, the relationship. How do you deal in home? Same way you deal in organization.
I mean, we are social animals. We want
no,
to
different.
connect.
That is the analogy I always used to bring in. That is where given me a lot of success as well. That's what today I realize it why we have been each other for quite a long time. It is because of that kind of universe brings us together. Great.
And there's just two points I do want to take a moment more to which really captured my attention on Vested is, for the first time we see contracts, and when I say contract, I mean not necessarily pivoting everything there, but contracts having behaviors listed on the first page. Not indemnities, not insurances, not anything legal terms, but it's saying that we will both be fair to each other, that we will honestly open up everything about our financial books with each other. We agree that there's equity, that I'm not going to cringe if you make more money, either of you. So when you bring in personal behavioral traits and explain what it means to this relationship, and that's the first page of your engagement of a formal contract, it just brings a different spin. And the second thing, which we learned a very, very hard way, and we had a tough coach. We This is the first time, Ram, and I know we work. I mean, 20 years in my life, that the first time I wrote a contract, or my entire 25, 30 years of career. First time you had to write, and there is no standard template for the contract. Every topic we had to sit, workshop it with the customer. So it's not just one way. So everybody together. And interestingly, it was two competitors and a client coming together, sitting together and put one topic, debate, deliberate, agree over that week and say, okay, this is what we are going to write. And then you write it yourself. And then we all say, yes, this is what we wrote, and we sign it up. So that is how every element of even the documentation went through. So 800 to 1,000 pages we have to write ourselves. And it's what it does is you know it by heart what your relationship is all about then. Yeah, so those two things I wanted to bring into attention.
Absolutely, that's very well put, because the behavior is also a very important aspect, which is missed out in how a person behaves in a relationship. And if we're invested in the other people, we actually that what is it up here is probably comes in later, because you won't be able to show it. But how you outwardly put it is already visible to the other side. If I'm banging the table every time there's a contractual clause being spoken out, that's already saying, oh, well, which probably we're already on the other side of the table. Let's not be together here. So I like that. Absolutely. Very well put it. Ram, we're going to probably come. I mean, I did want to ask this question, but I'm going to. So very briefly, Prafulla, would you be able to tell us a little bit about your Crystal Pants blog? That was, I mean, taking it totally, because men wear pants, but now we're talking about the crystal pants. And here's this woman talking about bringing the gender out of that whole equation and talking about trust. So I want to hear about this element about crystal pants.
Yeah. So it's funny how it came in. It came out of some element of discontent and disquiet and part of my journey professionally. I mean, it's not every journey is not very, very smooth. And one of my realizations has also been, whilst I said it was a very degenderized environment that you work in, one of the things that I grasped as I kept moving around within my own firm or looking at the world around me, I think the gender bias is higher as you're at the higher end of the organizational spectrum than at the lower levels. So there is a more of, this could be just my personal experiences, but I don't want to generalize it. But what I gathered is there's a lot more kind of wanting to be what's the right word to patronize. The concept of patronizing. Oh, I take care of these 20 girls in my team. I'm setting up cab services for pregnant women. And I'm like, excuse me, do you even know what being pregnant means? What would I want when I'm pregnant? I may not want a cab to drive me back home. I may want something different. Okay, but what I want, don't assume it. I think one of my pet peeves is assume I would want this and then patronizingly provide for it and say, listen, I am enabling gender diversity in my workplace. And the other piece, which I remember having a friendly debate with the leadership at one stage, was it's very easy to say my HR is finance lead, or as a lady, or my L&D is managed by a lady, or my legal is managed by a lady. I said, how often do we see my CEO, COO are ladies? I said, because decision making rests there. I mean, in any organization. And I'm like, where is that coming in from? And there is, so, and that's where the trigger, the thoughts. And I said, I got to teach the young girls about this underlying biases which do not come out. I mean, you still see that, yeah, my diversity ratio is now from 27 to 33 and bingo, we're doing the job. But that's always still, you are the foot soldier. Are you there at the top? And which is why we say get into the board and all that stuff. And Crystal Pants sort of, then I said, okay. And then I had a lot of young girls would come and they'd talk to me, and then there would be office events and all that. So I said, why don't I put all this stuff together and make it available to anybody and everybody who wants to do it? And then we said, what do I call it? And I felt pants is obviously so synonymous with men. And I said, just they're like crystal pants because they're so delicate when up there that they don't want to mess around. They're I think they get a lot more protective around the roles and positions. So it was a kind of a cheeky way to say they're crystal pants. So, they will shatter very quickly. So they're very protective about it. And that was the concept behind it.
I
Um,
loved it. Right.
yeah, so we're in the process because I wanted enough stories to put in there and questions. So I think in another 3 to 6 months' time, the blog should be up and about for people
Oh, I
to.
will so looking forward to this because this is something that is going to be inspiring many people on inclusion and diversity and how we have to be. Don't assume. Actually,
Yeah,
ask what
yeah,
we want. And
yeah.
you didn't add in that part about those glass doors that you were opening for yourself. But in spite of wearing those glass slippers, you've actually gone
Yeah.
through those glass doors and broken those glass ceilings and climbed those glass cliffs. I would say that's what, as a woman leader, those are the things that you have actually gone through, and hence those are the stories that you want to inspire many more with.
Yeah, yeah. I think my whole point is stop asking, enable yourself to make it happen for yourself. Why should you ask somebody to say, I would need this to continue in my workplace? I should be
Mm,
high up the perch enough to say that this is how I want more variables in my control. I mean, very young in my
mm,
life, I had a male boss, and she said, the more variables you have in your control, the better you would be able to deal with. So she's like, don't stall your growth because you want to have a baby, you want to quit off work and all that stuff. She said, just reach the place in an organization where you can confidently say, I'm going to have a baby and take a week off. And don't wait to ask somebody for it. So it's the whole thing of don't ask and break that bias. So there is an underlying bias. And it's because we're all part of a larger social context. It's just not corporates and
mm.
organizations. So we're trying to get that going. Yeah.
Ram, would you like to
Thank
ask the
you.
last
Thank you. I
question?
think you had given a lot of points today for the women leaders, but instead of asking one message to women leader, I would like, in summary, if you have to say something to a woman leaders of the current generation, what is that you would tell them?
I would, and keeping this focused on the corporate side of our lives, I would say you got to plan. Where I see women falling off the radars is they don't plan their careers and their workplace growth. They tend to leave it into phases of life. So it comes in bursts. So when I have time, I've finished my college, I will work. I'm getting married, I may not work. I have a baby, I most likely will not work. I'll come back after that. But whereas a guy who's your own batch mate who's passed on from the university with you, he's planned his career for the next 20 years and he's taking on the trajectory. So I would say plan and communicate your plan to your stakeholders around you because there's no
Mhm,
shortcut. There's no shortcut to go up there.
mhm.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for today giving an opportunity to be amongst the two powerful women here and discuss the topic.
No, thanks, Ram. I think that was like thanks. I mean, I just loved. I mean, you know me. I just love talking and opportunities like these. I really feel privileged, and anything that we can contribute is happy to always be part of that change. Yeah.
Absolutely. I will say thank you so much, Prafulla, for this conversation. I absolutely enjoyed it, learned a lot. And I would say my key takeaways today would be that number one, uh, plan. Plan so that you have as many variables in your hand so that you are able to be in that position of power so that you can communicate to people what your plans are and how you want to take it forward. Number two would be about being vested and be vested in the relationship, and that's obviously the parameters you shared about trust, about a shared vision, and don't script it on the past experiences, but be innovative enough to keep adapting to those things, and that includes the behavior part of it. And the
Yeah.
last part I would say would be I would just say in terms of lapses, growth, it's all there, but be a voice that is that can be heard by everyone. Be ready to walk on those untrodden paths and be a change agent. And that's what you have been in your industry. So I want to thank you so much, Prafulla, for being part of our show today. And for all our viewers, we will be back next week with another amazing leader to share insights and stories for your growth journey. Do follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Leadership Talks for Emerging Leaders. And for more information, join our Facebook community called Leadership Card. That's all from my side, Prafulla, as well as Ram Ramakrishnan signing off for today. Thank you.
Thank you.